Hello everyone and welcome back to Crypto Atlas. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, we're going to talk about Ethereum, Orchid, XRP, banned protocol, some interesting things going on with that as well. It's not only news information, but we're also going to take a look at the charts. If you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up like button. Let's try to push, just like all of our other videos, to try and get this video to 100 likes. It's greatly appreciated. It definitely helps us out in the search and discoverability, continuing to grow this community space. And if you do value this content, then it's nice to know that other people can actually be able to find it. So I do appreciate all the support you guys have been doing. Don't forget also to click the bell icon so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on. And as always, leave a comment below if there's anything that I may have missed of new information that came out, something that you feel is relevant that other people should be aware about. And I encourage you guys to go down there and check that information out. So I'm going to talk about a couple different things today. As I just mentioned, one of the things I also want to go into is about the entry stages for people that are new investors. I have an old friend. Hey, what's up, Isaac? If you're watching the video right now, and I'm going to go over just kind of like the people that are just now getting into crypto, what you could kind of expect with that. So I'm actually going to leave that after we cover the little bits of news right before we go into the charts here. It is now 4 o'clock, brand new on the daily formation. So the new position is at $40,676, with the previous day hitting just under $42,000, another all-time high for Bitcoin. So I'll talk about that in just a little bit. First off, what's going on in the community space? What are people saying about Bitcoin, things like that, right? So over on Twitter, something very interesting. This was actually shared by Cameron Winklevoss, who's one of the Winklevoss twins. If you guys have ever seen the movie The Social Network, that details the journey of how Facebook came to be, right? And so if you guys don't know the story, Mark Zuckerberg was working with these twins, and essentially he went behind their back and they got into a huge lawsuit. There was a settlement that came out of it. But since then, Zuckerberg has taken over Facebook. The Winklevoss twins went on their own way, and they heard about Bitcoin years ago, and they started pursuing that a lot more. So now they have their own crypto exchange called Gemini, and they're very big proponents of Bitcoin. They talk a lot about this kind of stuff. So check this out. This actually happened earlier today. Bitcoin, look at that, number 9. What's it right above? Facebook. That's right. The market capitalization for Bitcoin is now officially bigger than Facebook. Really let that settle into your minds for a second. Here's another point to keep in mind. Look at how close it is to Tesla right now. Elon Musk was just announced as the world's richest man. He passed even that of Jeff Bezos from Amazon. That's, he's operating for Tesla. So the fact that we're now above Facebook with Bitcoin, and we're very close to even passing Tesla. All the nostalgia, all the hype that's going on in the stock market right now, those main eyes are looking at how much Tesla has been gaining. That's the big attention seeker, right? If Bitcoin overtakes that, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot more news coverage on something like this. And it's called FOMO, the fear of missing out. Even more people are going to want to get in now, and we're talking about the retail investors. What we've been seeing previously is the financial institutions, the people with the major dollars back around the December period that have been accumulating large portions of the Bitcoin, not only on the daily produced side, but also the reserves. And the people that have large money, they can financially be able to hold it longer, right? For them, it's not a do or die situation. They've got extra funds. But for a smaller person, they might have to live on a day-by-day type basis. So if a bunch of people start selling and the panic, or FUD, right, fear, uncertainty, and doubt comes into play, then they might start tanking off all their stuff too, and the price just starts to cascade. This is one of the contributing factors that we saw most dominantly back in the 2017, 2018 period, right, when Bitcoin had hit 20K and it started dropping. It was led by the retail investors. So in today's period, we're led more dominantly by the financial institutions, and now the retail investors are coming in because of news coverage and hearing from more reputable people. So, first movers advantage. I don't know about some of you guys that are watching this, but I've tried telling a lot of people in my life about Bitcoin and suggesting them that they should get it and trying to explain to them how it works. I've told my family for years. And some people, it just comes to a point where they start to believe it only once they actually see it happening. And so, you know, it is what it is. But look at how awesome this is. Isn't that great news? Next up, as you guys can see, talking about the Bitcoin whales, right? So let's go a little more in depth into that. Bitcoin whales addresses with more than 100 Bitcoin, which, you know, $40,000, almost $41,000 a piece. We're talking a lot of money now. Accumulated an additional 47,500 Bitcoin amid Bitcoin's ruthless rally throughout December. Researchers at the San Francisco-based Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchange Kraken wrote in a report on Thursday. Not only did the aggregate number of Bitcoin and whale addresses hit its highest level all year, 11.46 million Bitcoin, but addresses with a balance of more than 100 Bitcoin surpassed 16,300, a reading last seen on March 16th, 2020. I want you guys to understand something here. A whale who accumulates large amounts of Bitcoin, they can have a massive splash on the market when they decide that they want to sell. If they wanted to sell everything and just be totally out of the equation. You also need to take a look at who is it that's coming in trying to accumulate these large amounts of Bitcoin, right? A lot of these people are looking at it as a hedge against inflation. For the same kind of reasons why a lot of people tend to go towards gold as a safe haven asset, a lot of people are now turning towards Bitcoin. Now, the beautiful thing with Bitcoin is that it's a non-correlated asset. It's not directly tied to what goes on with the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or the NASDAQ or another stock or what happens with gold or with silver, right? It's non-correlated. It moves at its own pace. It is its own entity. Sometimes you'll see a relationship, sometimes you won't. Because of the fact you don't always see it, hence why it's non-correlated. To have this many addresses that are holding Bitcoin, let's also take a look at another fact. Historically speaking, it's reported about 4 million Bitcoin are gone forever. We'll never see those again, right? So out of about 18.5 million or so that we're at for Bitcoin right now for the production rate, we know 21 million is going to be the maximum amount that there'll ever be. There's only a couple million more over the next 19 years that is expected to go, right? So over the next 119 years, the production rate of Bitcoin will slow down every 4 years approximately. And it's going to make it harder and harder to acquire Bitcoin, especially as a miner. So back then, a lot of people, what did they do? They mined it, they got it, they didn't think it was going to do anything, they threw away their hard drive, but it's also been 11 years. We're talking about in 12 years, 2009. So over the course of 12 years, over a decade has passed. People die. We're talking over 10 years. People die. And so there's going to be people who didn't pass on their private key information. You're going to have people that had it on a device and no one knew they was even on the device. There's many different reasons for these kinds of things, right? Hacks that happened in the past, the people never recovered their thing. They weren't good at managing their stuff. They had it on a ledger and they lost their ledger. So many different reasons. So you got a lot of this Bitcoin that's just going to be gone forever. Now you also need to move to present day. Out of all these wallet addresses that have been accumulating, there is no 100% guarantee that all of those people are also looking to sell or will have the ability to sell in the future, because people die, things happen, they go to jail, they don't have access anymore, they lose their keys. So we're going to see that happen more and more often. When you have large wallets that no longer have the ability to circulate these coins, then that actually diminishes the context of a circulating supply. And then we end up with what's called a supply shortage. So 21 million may sound like a substantial amount. 21 million may also sound like an insignificant amount. The reason why is that you've got 21 million Bitcoin, but then you've got 100 million Satoshis that go into every single Bitcoin. Now you do 21 million times 100 million, that's a very big number. So if every person was to be doing business using Satoshis, obviously there's way more than enough for approximately 8 billion people on this planet, right? There's way, way, way more than enough to be able to distribute it, have different levels of financial classes of wealth, you know, your upper class, middle class, lower class, plenty of that to handle all that. Now, if you look at it from a full Bitcoin perspective, instead of the Satoshis, and you just said 21 million, well, you can't have 21 million by itself, be evenly distributed amongst 8 billion people, right? So obviously that makes it way more scarce. But now we're actually at about what, 18.5 million, right? So you cut 18.5 million into 8 billion. Oh wait, but then you take away 4 million that hasn't been moving for years, and it starts to go down. You see what I'm saying? And then you get the major financial institutions. You're going to look at it progressively over time, and some of these other wallets are going to become older cold storage. It's a cascading effect. We are having an extreme effect right now, and that is a supply shortage, and it's only about to get even crazier. So I don't want to talk too much about this much more, but one of the last things I just want to kind of say with that is we don't have Walmart yet, right? Walmart's not accepting Bitcoin. Amazon's not accepting Bitcoin yet. eBay is not accepting Bitcoin yet. There are other places that do. You can go into certain Burger Kings that accept Bitcoin, Starbucks with Bitcoin, Whole Foods with Bitcoin. It's becoming more adopted. So not only is it being looked at as a safe haven asset, but as a currency, as a digital currency, aka cryptocurrency. There are more companies that are now willing to accept this. And so we're in this process. If anyone expected the whole world to just suddenly convert right over to Bitcoin and everyone's going to be using it, you're out of your mind, right? The world doesn't work that way. Look at how long it took for all these other inventions to come through. So even with the advances in technology that we have today, you don't just instantly flip a switch and the whole world is moving at the same pace. Maybe on a robot planet, you know? I mean, sorry. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. So Bitcoin hit new all-time high of $41,000. As we talked about, it almost hit $42,000. As the cryptocurrency rally showed little sign of slowing down despite recent volatility, the Bitcoin and crypto rally has been driven by record amounts of fiscal and monetary stimulus drowning markets in cash, as well as fears about currencies and inflation. Critics question whether this rally is sustainable and point to past crashes in Bitcoin, such as when it dropped from $19,000 to $4,000 between 2017 and 2019. So as I mentioned before, again, I'm just going to say this very briefly, we have different circumstances. So you cannot correlate instances that happened in the past when you have an evolving form of technology and how it's being implemented and who's accepting it, the adoption rate. Many factors change since back then. We even had the halving event, right? So the thing is that don't always rely on the old charts. Yes, they can be very good from a technical analysis standpoint if you have reference points, right? Because now you've got trend patterns that show themselves. But where we are at right now is called the price discovery zone. We are in ranges of value for Bitcoin that we have never been in. So it is hard to define where that top really can be. And we have to judge it a lot more as we go along. You can theorize about certain things from an emotional perspective, a psychological perspective. Yes, there are some subtleties, but it is a very weak, reliable form of information. I want to clarify that to you guys. Pullbacks on things, we got a little bit more data that we can reference to. Bitcoin rally may be the mother of all bubbles, says B of A, Bank of America, right? But this is actually kind of a misleading comment here. This is from CNN Business. So Hartman points out in a recent report that the dramatic rise in Bitcoin during the past 2 years, a surge of roughly 1,000% since the beginning of 2019, is far greater than the gains for other assets that have enjoyed massive run-ups in the past few decades, right? Hartnett didn't predict Bitcoin prices will plunge per se. Instead, he cited the froth in cryptocurrency prices as yet another example of, quote, increasingly speculative investing behavior, right? So they're misconstruing his words from the interpretation with this. The thing is that he is saying that it has been explosive, it's been very high gaining, but it's also speculative. The title of this, Bitcoin rally may be the mother of all bubbles. It's not indicating that it's going to have this massive pop and have a huge pullback, right? According to Michael Hartnett, chief investor strategist at Bank of America Securities, they quoted saying the mother of all bubbles. But when I look at this in my interpretation with the following, when they're saying that it's, quote, increasingly speculative, especially when they said that he's not predicting prices will plunge. It's very contradictory in the wording. So a very confusing article. Let me just kind of say that. I actually just noticed right here that they finally did have a quote in reference to that, but I'm still being completely honest with you guys. Even after reading that part right there, the fact that they then later on said, well, he didn't per se happen to say that. Well, you could have done a little bit better job than, I think, kind of titling your article, in my opinion. Anyways, so let's go ahead and move on to the next bit of information. So you got Bill Miller, right? Couple key points to what he said. He thinks Bitcoin is going to become less risky the higher the price actually goes. It gets less risky the higher it goes, Bill Miller said of Bitcoin. The famed value investor said he believes the digital coin's price could rise 100% within the next 12 to 18 months. So we're talking about a year to a year and a half. Bitcoin was trading over $40,000 per coin Friday afternoon. So he's talking about, potentially doubling here. We could look at around $80,000. And I think that's very feasible. In fact, I think that that's highly undervaluing where it could go, but that's my own opinion. Billionaire investor Chamath Palihapitiya, I have such a hard time saying this guy's name, I'm sorry guys, says Bitcoin will surge to $200,000 as more investors realize they need an uncorrelated hedge against untrustworthy national leaders. Billionaire investor told on Thursday thinking $200,000 as soon as 5 years as the fabric of society is frayed and investors realize they need an uncorrelated hedge in their portfolios. Every time you see all of this stuff happening, it just reminds you that, wow, our leaders are not as trustworthy and reliable as they used to be, he said. And so just in case, we really do need to have some kind of insurance we can keep under our pillow that gives us some access to an uncorrelated hedge. It's interesting that he noted under the pillow. Bitcoin hit a new all-time high of more than $41,000 on Friday morning. He preached about Bitcoin since he began investing it in 2012, a few years after the coin's inception. In 2017, he said that Bitcoin's price could reach $1 million before 2037. All right, so I believe, I'm like 90% sure on this, that he was the one that actually said that as an investment portfolio, you should do 1% at least into Bitcoin. At least, right? That 1% you can put underneath your pillow and essentially be able to forget about it. And if something was to happen to the dollar, right? The economy tanks, new government takeover, some weird, bizarre thing. You're just saying, you know what? I got something else that's different from the dollar. It's different from gold. Just in case if it goes in that direction, at least I have something in the game, right? We're talking 1%. A lot of other people, they suggest 5 to 10% of your portfolio into something like Bitcoin. Now, it's all your own risk, right? The golden rule of investing, never invest more than what you are willing to lose. It's no longer in your possession. Anything else can happen to it. Never invest more than what you are willing to lose. If you put $10,000 in because you see Bitcoin's doing great, all of a sudden Bitcoin tanks and it goes to zero, and you go, oh my God, I needed that $10,000. I have nothing. I'm going to be homeless tomorrow. Well, that probably was not a good idea for you to put that money into that then. Now, if you could do $100 and be like, well, I lost $100, but I'm still okay. All right, there you go. That's your investor perspective. That's your smart perspective. Only invest what you are willing to lose. And hopefully it goes up, obviously. Looking at this next, I want to kind of highlight this. This is the stock to flow chart. You guys can actually see this. This is through digilic.net/BTC. And this is most commonly presented by a guy. His username on Twitter is Plan B, highly accredited, and it's been proving very reliable. And this is a mathematical based chart, right? So that light blue line that you guys see, if you've never seen this before, that's identifying where the projected price should be from a mathematical based formula of stock to flow. The dot colors are what the actual price of Bitcoin has been. And then the color progressions are how they move throughout their cycle periods, right? So as you guys can see, we're starting to move more towards from the orange phase towards a yellow phase. And we also have previous history that shows an indication that yellow phases lead then into the green, but both of those progressively are more so towards the upside, especially the yellow. The green starts to have a bit of a climax back here in the 2011 period, and then a retracement back down. Green period down here was actually mostly a downwards trend, and then the second phase that we saw here as well. So approximately every 4 years, we have the halving event. That means that the amount of Bitcoin inside of a block, so kind of like a Rubik's Cube here, gets cut in half. The miners that are using their processors started out back in 2009. They got 50 Bitcoin. Every time they got the right combination with their processor, right? The right letters and number combination when a new Bitcoin is actually created. So it's in the world now. The code said, okay, we made one. Somebody go find it. Processor is just guessing. Oh, hey, I happen to have guessed it right. Okay, cool. I got rewarded with the Bitcoin. 4 years later, gets cut in half, gets cut in half, gets cut in half, etc. And it happens 4 years. It doesn't happen during the course of the 4 years. 4 years marker hits, boom, and instantly gets cut in half. That's how that works. So you guys can see these slope actions that are taking place, and we just had back in May of last year, the last halving event. So the next projected halving event is actually going to be, I believe it said it here. I thought it said yeah. No, that wasn't it. Where did it go? Anyway, I don't know where it is exactly at the moment, but the point is that it's going to be about 4 years from now. I think it's like February something of 2024, right? But you guys get the point. So let's go ahead and talk more about the actual facts with this. So it's actually expected that we could hit at least $100,000 and a median range of about $288,000. On the higher end, we're pushing close to $400,000. Also, you know, I mentioned not only earlier Walmart, I said Amazon, I said eBay. Those players haven't come into the equation yet. I forgot to mention, look at PayPal. PayPal rolled out last year for the United States only to be able to buy Bitcoin. It's this year, early in this year, that they already announced last year. But this year, the early stages, they're going to make it so that you can buy Bitcoin worldwide. You understand that? Just from the US and Square last year, they were consuming all of the newly created Bitcoin, all the newly mined Bitcoin. So that means anyone that's trying to buy Bitcoin is going to have to buy old Bitcoin. But then you've got all these major other institutions that are also buying in bulk those old Bitcoin, like Grayscale and MicroStrategy, right? And the list goes on and on. You got major NFL players that are getting on this. You got a whole bunch of other athletes that could be getting on this. You've got social media influencers that are going to be getting in on this. Look at people talking about like Doge and stuff on TikTok. It is a huge revolution that's going on. And thinking that this is too overbought right now, I think you guys are going to be really, really surprised. So next thing to take a look at with this is going on with Band Protocol. So Band Protocol is actually looking to do Band Standard Phase 2. CoinGecko has now announced a partnership with the Band Protocol. According to the details, CoinGecko will play a crucial role in developing the next version of the Band Chain Phase 2. The association will help data providers with several new ways, including monetizing and commercializing their solutions. Besides, data providers can also charge for the per call or time basis, further enhancing their revenue potential. Band Chain Phase 2 is supported by a large consortium of reputed organizations and data providers. So there is some news going on for the further development of Band Protocol, and we will be taking a look at the charts here because they had a very interesting day yesterday. Okay, so before I go into the charts here, very briefly, if you guys are new to cryptocurrency, let me go over some very simple basics for you guys, okay? So first off, I got a link in the description. I haven't been doing this in my old videos. I haven't even been talking about it, right? So if you guys have never invested into crypto, but you've been thinking about doing it, if you live in the United States, there is an app called Coinbase or a website called Coinbase, and I've got a referral code. So if you go through that code, I believe you could get some extra things. I know that I'm supposed to get something extra out of it once you do some of your profile setup. But in the United States, you got a couple different options. You've got technically Coinbase. You've got Kraken as another provider you could go through. You've also got Binance US, specifically the US division for them. You could register with them. You've also got PayPal technically, but you also got to think about what ones you go through that you actually legitimately own your Bitcoin, right? So if you go through like PayPal, you can't transfer your PayPal outside of PayPal. You can only transfer it to other PayPal users. So think of it a little bit more like that, right? So depend on what level of control you want, what level of ease you want, the fees that are associated with these things. You could do a little bit more research on it if you want. Then you also got Square, Cash App, and Apple had something that came out recently. You got Fidelity. So there's lots of different options, but if you guys want to get started, you can start off with Coinbase using my referral link in the comments down below. Also, I'm going to go ahead and include a link to my Fidelity. Wait, is it Fidelity I'm thinking about? Sorry. Oh, Robinhood, my bad. So I was thinking Robinhood. I think you could do it with Fidelity too, but I was thinking of Robinhood. So you can actually buy Bitcoin through Robinhood, but again, you don't technically own it. Now, here's the interesting thing. So with Robinhood, you got a system where when you refer friends to sign up with Robinhood for the first time, if they use your referral link, then you can actually get a stock. So what I've done before is I've referred people and then I get to scratch off because they signed up with my code and they got a stock too. Right? So if you use my code for that, you'll get a free stock and I will get a free stock too. Then once I've gone through the passing phase, because it's like a couple days or it's 2 weeks or something like that till you actually can do anything with the stock you just got, I just go ahead and I sell it. And then I take that money that's left in my portfolio and I moved it right over to Bitcoin. And I'll tell you, when I did that in the past, because Bitcoin has continued up in value, it's been very beneficial for me. And so there's a limit to how many that you can do over the course of the year, but you can refer a lot of people. So my suggestion to you guys is that if you want to try and get some free Bitcoin right now, probably the easiest way that you could do it is to use my Robinhood app if you're able to use it wherever you live. And you got to be over the age of 18 for this stuff. And then both of us will get that free stock. Make sure that you do all your registry stuff with them. You do have to report your capital gains on things, so be very keeping in mind that when you trade things, whatever your profit is that you made, you have to report that. So for example, if you bought it at $10 and you sold it at $20, you made a $10 profit. So you report $10 profit and you'll get taxed on $10 of profit. You understand? You don't report $20 because you didn't make a $20 profit. You sold it at $20, but you only made a $10 profit. So capital gains is on the profit that you made. Let me make that totally clear. Some people have been wondering about like day trading and things like that. So I got the Robinhood link in the comments for you guys if you want to check that out, the description, sorry. And then also the Coinbase for that too. Another thing to keep in mind, once again, I'll say it because it is the golden rule and I really need you guys to get this, is never invest more than what you're willing to risk to lose or what you're willing to lose. Never do it, okay? Bitcoin, a lot of people are talking about it, yes. If you want to play it safe, I'm not a financial advisor, so this is my own opinion. Let me clarify that too right now. Bitcoin is the best positioned cryptocurrency right now. That's the big daddy, right? So it's a high price, yes. And a lot of people could say, well, I missed the boat on it. But if you're looking at something kind of like a 401k perspective, if you're looking at something like a gold, long-term accruing an interest, you want something that feels a little bit more safe, then I would be looking towards Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency space for the long run. Yes, from it to get to a 2x from $41,000 to $82,000, we're talking about a lot of money that needs to come into play here. And something that's a penny going to 2 pennies, you might think, well, yeah, I can get more money that way too. But there's high level risk and then there's also security. And diversifying your portfolio can be a very important thing. So just in my own opinion, if I have my money, right, I would say that having an investment portion largely contributed towards the security for long term is important, and to have that reliability of what's been showing from the stock to flow model for Bitcoin. And it's also 12 years old now too, right? And then when you go into the other assets, you could be looking to try and flip those. So you're looking at either potential long-term projects on these new startups, but those are very, very, very risky, or you could be looking to just buy and sell depending on the circumstances. But again, if you're buying and selling, you got to report your capital gains. So just be very cautious how you decide that you want to do that. Now, some people, what they suggest is that what you could do is that you put in X amount of money, let's say $100, right? And when the price of the cryptocurrency reaches a point where you can take out $100 of profit and still have half of what you had put in before, or potentially not even half of what you put in before of the tokens wise, then you've already made your money back. Anything else at any point that you decide to sell of that specific crypto is now going to be profit, right? So it's like you never lost anything, you never took any kind of a risk. I mean, obviously you got to still report your capital gains, so you might want to do just a little bit of a margin difference on something like that. But the point is that you could just let that ride and not be concerned. If you need the extra money on it, cool, you take it out, now you made a profit. Whether it goes down or it goes up, it doesn't matter. If it's still above zero, you technically can cash it out and you made more of a profit, right? So that's one thing that you could really take into account. But I highly recommend that if you're brand new to trading, that, just my personal opinion, do not do day trading. Do not do it. You got to take a lot of research into these charts when you're in price discovery zones. People do shorting, for example. I don't touch shorting at all, and people are getting wrecked right now, bad. And so shorting is when you're betting that the coin or the stock or whatever is going to go in the opposite direction. Other people, they also do where they borrow money. Darn it, I just forgot the name of it. They do like times 5, times 10. It's kind of like a margin thing. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on this at the moment. Anyways, so when you do that, you're borrowing money from the exchange, and once again, you can get liquidated very quickly if it goes in the opposite direction, and now you're out of all that money. That's much more of a gamble. So be cautious with these things. Do tons of research. Diversify your portfolio to an extent. The most reliable cryptocurrencies are Bitcoin and Ethereum. Litecoin is looking to be a little bit more stabilized, only in the fact that it seems like it has better adoption rates going on with the bank systems. As far as its actual practical usability, there's nothing that's all that special with it. So I'm not saying that it's going to 10x, 100 times X or anything like that. But of the top 3, these are like the highest position coins right now. But let's go ahead and take a look at the actual charts now. I know I'm making this video quite long, and I wanted to just kind of explain some extra things for people that are new into cryptocurrency, such as like my friend that's watching. So I'm actually going to keep the charts pretty short for today. All right, so yesterday we had a position that closed out at just under $42,000. That's going to be a new level of resistance that we want to try and break out of today. The fact that we're now above $40,000, psychologically, the fact that we are closing the previous day above that position, we now believe 50K is possible. We're talking about major moves, right? Can we hit it? It looks very probable. Could there be a pullback? Well, there's a high level potential for that as well. We could see a baseline formation that's showing very consistent throughout here. I would say that if we had a drop down that was significant, because we have had 4 days of closure here, there are all green candles, positive daily gain candles. We could see it potentially drop down to around 34,538 and have that be a major level of support for the continuation down. I would be looking at 33,376, and then once again, another potential position at $32,000 from a psychological standpoint. That 21 EMA is at 31,240. I am seeing a lot of red popping up as of the moment here on the liquidation charts. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're liquidated. Sometimes it'll actually say liquidate on them. But you can see massive amounts of selling going on here. $1 million levels. That's all taking place over on Bybit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Basically $18 million worth, and it was all successive. So I don't know if that was from the same individual and they're just doing separate orders or not. Binance Futures, there's a little bit of a sell too, but it's still holding itself above $40,000. So it's got a lot of signs for the positive. You see this rally, it is being quite substantial. This 21 EMA, which is such an integral part of sustainability, it's not a 100% guarantee on things, but it's a very good indicator. You can actually see that the slope is now getting even more high. So the higher that this goes, the easier it's going to be for the price to actually cross over it, which is bad. If it crosses over it, or sorry, below it. If it crosses below it, then that is an indication that we're now going into a bear market, which suggests that there should be more selling pressure going on. So we've got a lot of days, a lot of movement that's going up, but a lot of things have also been changing. And in a major bull run market like where we're at right now, with the supply shortage, to say that we are overdue for a correction on this isn't really that fair. We actually have had massive sell-offs that took place, losing about $3,000 in the course of one day, and then it bounced right back up. So there's still plenty of potential room for this to grow. I would be looking through this space, though, that we're filling right now on the daily, about 34,480. What's interesting is every day that this goes by, we're increasing it about $1,000 as the support level. So that's actually something really nice to know, too, if you're thinking about like percentage reductions going down. Let's go ahead and look at the next coin. And I'm going to keep these ones even more brief. Ethereum needs to get above $1,420 as its all-time high, has previously hit $1,300. If it decides it wants to drop back down right now, which it did have quite a substantial drop yesterday, we're looking at some support ranges right around 1,136, but more substantiated because we saw this comparable with the previous day and a previous candle on January 6th. That's around $1,057. Further drop down, the 21 EMA is at $909. I'm told you we're going to move right through this. XRP. Oops, might help if I write that a little bit better, right? XRP USD. Okay, clicking on that. You can see a daily candle was slightly in the red yesterday, but the previous day before that was a massive green candle. So even though this is going to be shutting down on, I believe it's January 19th, for the exchange for Coinbase, no longer allowing them to trade that because of the lawsuit that's going on, this is still holding itself up pretty well. I mean, it's actually outperforming some of the other cryptocurrencies. And so the 21 EMA, it is actually above that, 2 days of closure. Currently, it is showing some red signs, potentially going to drop below that. That level of support right now is at 31 cents, 0.3154. Further drop back down, I would be looking at this major level of support right down here at 17 cents. But we could actually see a little bit of a formation as there is some consolidation that took place during this phase, and that's right around 22 cents. So I would say 22 cents is the first level of major support, and then 17 cents, and then further below that at 11 cents. And if it wants to go up above, it really needs to try and get above 44 cents. Now, let's go take a look at Band Protocol. Band Protocol, it was doing some crazy stuff. Band Protocol actually had a really nice daily green candle, and then the news that we were sharing about earlier, and on the new daily position, it's still holding above $10. That's something else I want to point out to you guys. It's the fact that it's maintaining above a $10 range, which is a really nice psychological point, getting out of single digits, going into double digits, and it has a previous position that was in the double digits as well. That was up to around $17.50. For those of you guys that don't know, Band Protocol is basically the leading competitor against Chainlink, and a lot of people really like Chainlink. Chainlink last year pushed itself up to almost $20. So the fact that this has in the past gotten pretty comparable to that too, it looks like it's got plenty of room to still be able to grow, especially during a market like what we're seeing. And what I thought was really interesting, I set up this pattern, I don't even remember how long ago, and let me go ahead and delete this just to show you guys. I showed this sideways pitchfork pattern, right? And I did the estimate for its potential breakout zone. It continued to consolidate during this whole phase, but that potential zone actually was almost on the dot. It was so close to where we actually had a bounce off of on the previous daily candle. And then the new formation has been formed on the daily, and it's now shown a further continuation up. Actually, right now, technically, it's resting right on that line again. So I'm kind of like patting myself on the back. It's nice to know that doing all these actual chart analytics and looking at trends and understanding how they work a lot more is paying off. So it didn't break out at the point what I was thinking. It continued for quite a while and filled within the space. But when it decided it wanted to move, guess what? That's where we saw the major level of resistance. So if it wants to go all the way up, we're going to be looking right around $17.50. Further level drop down below. Major level of resistance is all the way down at $5.39. Further drop all the way down to the bottom here is $3.85. I don't expect that at all. We have high level of volume that's taken place on several days here. The activity itself on the daily position on the RSI at least is suggesting is being overbought. So be a little bit cautious with that, but we are starting to see altcoins starting to rally as Ethereum is starting to make more progressive moves as well. And so we just talked about with Ethereum, right? Looking at this one more time. This is actually looking at it over on the Bitstamp side, but it's not really big of a deal. So it's getting very close to its previous all-time high. When it passes that, it then enters into the price discovery zone. And lastly, we're going to focus on Orchid, and then we'll wrap up this video. This is probably the longest video that I've done on this channel, I think. So lastly, I just want to say that we did break above the 21 EMA, and we had 1, 2, 3 days of closure, suggesting a further continuation rally up. There was actually a lot of selling pressure that took place yesterday. There was a position that was starting to show itself in the formation. I had previously said that there was a large indicating sign based on the previous trends that there should be a there should be at least another daily candle moving up in the green before it decides it makes to want to make another move, because we finally had 3 days of consecutive green candles. That turned out to be wrong, right? I didn't guarantee it. I just said that based on the previous trends. So I'm just going to say this at this point, right? Trying to fully evaluate Orchid, OXT, is extremely difficult and it's virtually impossible at this point because there is so much what seems to be manipulation going on in this system. It is pumping and dumping all the time. So yes, we did break above the 21 EMA. The fact that we just broke above the 20 EMA did show, according to trends, a further continuation up there, which it did have 2 days, but the actual full establishment of 3 days, suggesting a further continuation up. The last daily candle was red. We could actually see a further break going up now with the daily green. But oftentimes this tends to sway very heavily depending on what goes on with Bitcoin. It can progressively move up a little bit, starts to gain some nice momentum, and then Bitcoin drops, $200 in like a minute. And all of a sudden Orchid will just immediately start dumping itself, like as if it gets a triggered response. It's very bizarre. 21 EMA, we're looking at 25 cents for a potential level of support. If it wants to break above, let's get above 31 cents, break into the 30-cent psychological range. That's actually the first major point, is getting into 30 cents. So above 31 cents and then breaking above out of this zone of 32 cents would actually give us back into a little bit more stability, heading back towards the 0.5 on the Fibonacci retracement. And then I would be looking at major level support right down once again at 21 cents is a very big bottom position. Let me go ahead and get right here. You guys can see that the level of volume has still progressively been going down, so we should expect at some point a reversal and a nice little uptick of the volume going from this way upwards like that. So that volume candle could be either green or red. Hopefully it's going to be green. If it ends up being red, guess what? It's probably going to put us right back in this space. So we'll have to wait and see how things go. But man, I love the project. I really believe in this company. I'm looking at it from a little bit more of a long-term perspective. I think it could have a high percentage yield return here in the near future. But, looking at it from the technicals, it is what it is. Okay, so again, we're going to wrap up the video here, guys, because I made it a very long video. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up like button. Let's try to get to 50 likes on this video. It'd be greatly appreciated. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought about this and everything else we talked about today. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next episode.